you care for me, but don't worry about me, just say a prayer for me. Cause we all going one day, so just prepare for me. And I'ma live to the fullest, so don't be scared for me. Just say a prayer for me, yeah.
Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me. Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me.
I used to have problems getting it off. Now I'm dripping in sauce. First I'm hitting the gas, then you get the exhaust. Told the world that I'm coming, I'm working to be a boss. It's consequence for them actions. I teach my sons that it costs. All this drama in my life is fucking with my conscience. Caught the little chain, they wonder how I got this. Swear these niggas lame, why they worried about my pockets? Tore out the frame, now she wanna keep me hostage. Better than ever, it's really no room for ever. Play for keeps and never settle, no negotiate with the devil. I'm getting harder to measure, I give it all, cause I'm destined, I'm too involved and I'm ready, so through it all I'ma get it. I know you care for me, but don't worry about me, just say a prayer for me. Cause we all going one day, so just prepare for me. And I'ma live to the fullest, so don't be scared for me. Just say a prayer for me, yeah.
Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me. Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me. Can you pray for me?
Something wrong, somebody pray for me. Psychic said it ain't safe for me. I pulled the car with 2 snakes on it, intertwined into an 8 or something. Bottom line, it was an ace on it. Pray for me. I seen a demon with a face on it. I don't look in the mirror now. I know them voices in my head from the spirit realm. I know it's people under the stairs and in the ceiling found. I feel my niggas in the air who ain't here around me. I know you possibly sincerely care about me, but I still ain't going nowhere without the hand on me. Just say a prayer for me. I know you care for me, but don't worry about me, just say a prayer for me. Cause we all going one day, so just prepare for me. And I'ma live to the fullest, so don't be scared for me. Just say a prayer for me, yeah.
Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me. Pray for me. If you love me, just pray for me. Can you pray for me?
This My 2 Cent podcast was brought to you and sponsored by the official IBelongApparel.com. Come check out the official IBelongApparel.com for short sets, tank sets, windbreakers, Luxe tracksuits, Luxe sweatsuits, and accessories. The official IBelongApparel.com. When you stay true to yourself and your purpose, you always belong. The official IBelongApparel.com. Okay, thanks for stopping back. Sorry it took so long for us to come back with this part 2 of the cloning. Life happens, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate y'all for stopping back and checking this out. I wanted to pick up right and get to it and about this part 2 of cloning with a couple of movies that are the best examples I could find on YouTube, TV, and movies that you could check out as far as cloning goes. Now, the first one is called The 6th Day. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like the best example of cloning, you know, that people talk about, like in these trends and stuff today, with like celebrities and all that. Oh, this person is cloned, that person is cloned. That concept of cloning that we're talking about, as far as like the celebrity trend of people thinking people are being cloned and this and that who are celebrities, which we talked about in part 1. This movie right here, The 6th Day, is a good movie you could check out just for that concept. You know what I mean? They touch on a little bit of the law when Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to, when he's starting to figure out like his dog was or he wants to clone his dog for his daughter or whatever. But yeah, so The 6th Day is a good one. And then the next one would be The Island. This movie is an example of therapeutic cloning. Again, you can find concepts that we're talking about as far as the types of cloning in part one of this cloning series. But the island, this one is starring Ewan McGregor. You can find it here on YouTube TV and movies and stuff. But this movie, the people that were here, like you see in the picture here, they were all cloned for their body parts. So a lot of the donors, if you will, because they have to have your cells and everything in order to make a clone. Their donors, most of them had like other health related issues, and so the concept of this movie was this whole place was locked off and shut away from the world, where these clones could live until, like in Ewan McGregor's character's case, he had a certain physical condition to where he was going to end up needing the body parts of his clone. And so all of these clones that you see in the picture dressed in white, they don't even know that they have someone in the real world whose DNA or cells were used to make them, or make them and create them. So yeah, The Island, it's a pretty good movie. All of these movies I'm going to talk about are pretty good movies as far as movies are concerned. But yeah, this is The Island. It stars Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. Then the next one is Replicas. This was a really cool movie starring Keanu Reeves. It seemed like a lot of the science fiction movies Keanu Reeves plays in are pretty good. So yeah, you can't go wrong, you know what I mean, as far as the movie part goes. But yeah, this is Replicas is the best example of gene cloning, the gene cloning process from scratch and the after product, because he ends, like, his character in the movie, wife and family, like, they had an accident, and so he was actually a scientist a genetic scientist who actually, that was his job, working on cloning. And so he ended up using some of his family's DNA, and used the materials, like literally they talk about the materials they use for the movie, you know what I mean? So don't think that all of the materials that they mention in the movie, if you see it, is like what you can do in real life. I'm just saying, in the movie, him and his work partner, they use these materials, you know what I'm saying, and cloned his family, you know what I mean? And then the after product is like what happened, like, because he has conversations, flashback conversations and stuff like that with his actual wife before she passed or whatever. And they were talking about what's the difference, what will make a clone, etc. It might have been the clone he was actually talking to. But anyway, it's a good movie for you to see the actual cloning process, where the writer of the movie, the script, was trying to capture the thought process and the actual performance of creating, you know what I'm saying, another being, you know what I mean, from the materials that they say that our bodies, physical bodies, are made of. So yeah, the Replicas, that's another good one you can check out here, you know what I mean, on YouTube or YouTube TV or whatever wherever you stream and stuff like that. Now, I'll close these. So now we're gonna go to reality. You know what I'm saying? As soon as this advertisement goes away. With Henrietta Lacks. Now, she is known as the so-called first black woman or black person or even person whose genes and cells were used to create medicines. It was interesting when I ended up finding this when I first started this series. The day that I looked it up, which was actually July 28th, 2023, this came out. You know what I mean? This article came out about her family, going to court and getting a settlement, you know what I mean, for what the state of Maryland and the government, et cetera, did, you know what I'm saying, with her genes, without her knowledge and without her family's consent. And so, let's see, hopefully, well, it's going to act like that. We'll come back to it. It says, lawsuit over Henrietta Lacks immortal cells heads into settlement talks. And so it says here, a lawsuit, quote, a lawsuit between the family of Henrietta Lacks and a biotech company accused of profiting off of her immortal cell line has been referred to a magistrate judge for settlement talks, new court records show. If a settlement is reached, the consequential lawsuit could end without a judge's ruling on a pending motion to dismiss the case. Because these companies were trying to dismiss the case because they didn't want to pay one, and plus they didn't want everybody to know that, this example of cloning is real, because they were using her cells actually, and people were ingesting the byproducts that came from using her cells. That's a form of cannibalism too, but whatever. The Lacks estate, represented by her grandson R.L. Lacks, sued Thermo Fisher Scientific Incorporated in October 2021 over his use of they called her cells the HeLa cell line, named for Henrietta Lacks. And you see some of her people and attorneys right there. It says the original cells were taken from Lacks, a black woman from Baltimore County, without her knowledge while she received treatment for cancer at Johns Hopkins Hospital in 1951. So this was in 1951, you know what I'm saying? And if you refer back to the first video, you will see the timeline where they're discussing when they first started cloning, like with animals, and, then the laws that were going on, why they wouldn't allow human cloning and stuff like that in the United States. Lacks cells have been used widely for scientific research in the decades since, because they can reproduce endlessly in a lab. You see that? So since 1951, her cells, Mrs. Lacks' cells, may she rest in peace, have been used widely for scientific research in the decades since. So a decade is 10 years. Every 10 years, you know what I'm saying? Since 1951. We in 2023 right now. So you do the math on that. How long they've been using her cells. The lawsuit against Thermo Fisher faced an uphill battle. The company argued that it did not know about the unethical origin of the cells when it bought them. So they bought her cells. You know what I'm saying? That's, incredible in itself, because like who did you pay for her cells? When you didn't pay the family or ask her and get her permission first, you didn't pay the family or her estate. Anyway, and ask a federal judge to throw out the case based on a 3-year statute of limitations. The complaint was brought more than a decade after the publication of a best-selling book that revealed the history of the HeLa cell line, making the statute of limitations question the most challenging issue facing the family's lawsuit. A motion to dismiss the lawsuit has been pending before U.S. District Judge Deborah L. Bortman for several months, but a filing Wednesday indicated the case has been referred for a settlement conference, which could mean avoiding a ruling on the motion to dismiss. The settlement conference is scheduled for Monday before Magistrate Judge J. Mark Coulson. The family's lawsuit asked for a permanent order that would block Thermo Fisher from using Lacks' cells without permission from her estate, and for a constructive trust to benefit her family. So, that's really the gist of what is going on. Because I know as of it might have been last month, the family ended up winning, and they won for their damages, you know what I'm saying? And they got a nice chunk of change as far as money goes. The thing that we should keep in mind is and be asking is what gives, what gave those people at the time of Ms. Lack's passing in 1951, what gave them the right to use her cells of her body without her permission, knowledge, without her family's permission or knowledge, and feel as though they could sell it and, keep making money and then try to, have the case dismissed when the family figures out what's been going on. And they, since, this material realm that we are in, currently is being controlled and everything by those who seek what they consider monetary gain. They wanted to get what was due them under this system of monetary operation, and respectfully so. So our question still becomes, you know what I'm saying? Who gave them the right to do that? Like, really think about that. Don't think about, we're all here to help each other, because obviously we're not. You know what I'm saying? But, melanated people, you know what I'm saying, so-called black people, we get, shitted on in every single instance of life. Every single way we get fed upon, preyed upon. And when we speak up for ourselves, we've always been the problem. You know what I'm saying? But we don't get the credit for helping, quote unquote, humanity as a whole sustain and maintain itself. And Miss Henrietta Lacks, may she rest in peace, she is a living example of, the power that we were gifted and blessed with just with having melanin and who we are. They used her cells to treat all kinds of ailments without her or her family's knowledge or permission. But what gave them the right to do that? Like, trading her former body as property, trading it as property in commerce and making billions. Think about that. What actually gives these people the right to look at other people as property and things that they, as objects of commerce or whatever, objects of whatever their pleasure or desire or, thinking is, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever they want to do is just okay because, we don't have much meaning and value within the way that they look at their system of things. So yeah, I got into looking at Mrs. Lack's life a little bit more. I read the book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, but this article here is just going more into like a little bit of her background and stuff. So I'm gonna read just a little bit of it because it's gonna tie into some stuff we're gonna look at later. So it just says Henrietta Lacks, born Loretta Pleasant, had terminal cervical cancer in 1951. And, based off of what we know about how, our people have been treated, our women in particular being mistreated in these hospitals and stuff like that, and their personal health when it comes to, pregnancies and giving birth, the fact that she had terminal cervical cancer, that makes me question, like, what kind of quote unquote treatment was she even receiving, during her lifetime? Because, they have been trying to eliminate a lot of our people, just on GP. If you can do research, which I suggest and recommend that you do, into, how the medical field has played a big role in, using our body parts, pretty much killing people. It's just what it is, you know what I'm saying? In the name of trying to practice medicine. But that's another story, but let's keep going. And she was diagnosed at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, where researchers collected and stored her cancer cells. Those cells went on to become the first immortal human cell line, which the researchers named HeLa. An immortal cell line is an atypical cluster of cells that continuously multiply on their own outside of the organism from which they came. See how they objectify? Well, outside of the organism, she was just the organism, okay, from which they came, often due to a mutation. Lack's cancer cells enabled scientists to study human cells outside of the human body, though that was controversial since she did not voluntarily donate her cells for such research. Science writer Rebecca Skloot chronicled Lack's life in her book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which became a movie in 2017. Lack's HeLa cell line has contributed to numerous biomedical research advancements and discoveries, and her story has prompted legal and ethical debates over the rights that an individual has to their genetic material and tissue. So right there, how now if this happened to a pale-skinned European born in America, I wonder if there would have been any legal and ethical debates over the rights that an individual has to their genetic material and tissue. You know what I'm saying? This wouldn't have happened. There's only one people that have been looked upon as property, chattel property, shadow property, since the Mayflower gang came and pretty much, took over things with the help of melanated people who were misdirected and guided anyway. But it's only one. That type of thinking has only been applied to one type of person, one type of people. You know what I'm saying? But okay, let's keep going. Lacks was born on August 1st, 1920, to Eliza Pleasant and John Randall Pleasant in Roanoke, Virginia. Lack's mother died giving birth to her 10th child when Lacks was 4 years old. Following her mother's death in 1924, her father and his 10 children moved to Clover, Virginia, where their relatives lived and their ancestors had worked as slaves. Okay, so that's another key, slaves. There, Lack's father divided his children to be raised among relatives. According to Skloot, that is because Lack's father did not have the patience to for raising children. Lacks was raised by her grandfather, Tommy Lacks, who was simultaneously raising his other grandchildren, Lack's first cousin, David Lacks, or Day. Though her cousin stopped attending school in the 4th grade, Lacks continued until the 6th grade. So, on 10th of April, 1941, at age 20, Lacks married her cousin, Day Lacks. According to Skloot, Lacks' cousins encouraged Lacks and her husband to follow them to Bethlehem Steel to escape the poverty that came with being tobacco farmers. After their marriage in 1941, the couple moved to Turner Station in Maryland so Lacks' husband could work for Bethlehem Steel at Sparrows Point. There, the couple started their family. Both Lacks and her husband were Catholic, and together they had 5 children: Lawrence, Lucille, David Jr., Deborah, and Joseph. Lacks' daughter Lucille, called Elsie, had developmental disabilities. According to Skloot, around 1950, Lacks mentioned to her female cousins that she felt as though a knot was inside of her, though she did not seek medical attention. A week after telling her cousins about feeling a knot, Lacks became pregnant with her 5th child. After Lacks became pregnant with Joseph, Elsie was too big for Lacks to handle alone, according to Skloot, and the doctors recommended sending Elsie away to the hospital for the Negro Insane, which was later renamed the Crownsville State Hospital in Crownsville, Maryland. So this is another evidence of them always just studying us, like walking experiments. And it's a shame that a lot of people You know what I'm saying? A lot of melanated and melanin rich people on this land of America don't think about that fact. That they always studying us. And they never asking why. You know? They practice medicine. They practice law. When they play the game, though. You know what I'm saying? If you always practicing, when do you play the game? They not playing no games. It's a reason why they do what they do. But some so-called black people just take everything that these people do, you know what I mean, for granted, and think that, you know, whatever, it ain't no big deal. We just want to love everybody and include everybody, and that's not reality, because nobody else is doing that out here on nowhere on earth, just including everybody all the time and putting everybody before they self. That's the first violation of survival, self-preservation. But we'll continue. Just My 2 Cent podcast was also brought to you and sponsored by AmplifyReach.com, formerly known as JE Creative Web Hosting and Design. Check out Amplify Reach when you're ready to step up your business's online presence. AmplifyReach.com for affordable web design, web hosting, and marketing solutions. Amplify Reach. Amplify with the Y. Why? Because they're the best. AmplifyReach.com. So let's continue with this article. I'm just going to point out a few more things. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can check it out for yourself. You see us here at Embryo Project Encyclopedia for Arizona State University. But, quote, let's see. Quote, according to Skloot, during that time in history, it was common for physicians to use patient samples from public wards without their knowledge or consent. The only form of consent that the Johns Hopkins Hospital had Lax sign was titled Operation Permit, which stated that she consented to the hospital performing any operative procedures and an anesthetic deemed necessary for proper surgical care, end quote. So that's showing you right there, the only thing she actually signed was pertaining specifically to operative procedures and anesthesia, you know what I'm saying, used for her surgery. So they didn't have permission to use anything from her body, period. The article goes on, you know, and deals with this doctor, Gay. He's the one who came up with the idea to just go ahead and just use her cells and stuff like that. He had been doing it with other patients, but they weren't successful. And you know, Miss Lax, may she rest in peace, hers were. So that's pretty much what they're describing, and you know, prior to what I just read here. But the other part I wanted to talk about was right here. Quote, Lax died on the 4th of October 1951, with the official cause of her death being terminal uremia. Terminal uremia occurs when the kidneys are unable to filter blood the way that they should, and consequently high levels of toxins build up in the blood. It says normally functioning kidneys work with the liver to remove and filter out toxins and other byproducts that the body produces. Though there was no obituary for Lax, Gay's lab came to know of her death, according to Skloot, and Gay requested an autopsy to validate the potential for further samples from Lax's various organs. You see what I'm saying? So let me continue. However, to comply with the law, which held that an autopsy could not be completed without permission, Gay needed permission from Lax's family. According to Skloot, physicians only convinced Lax's husband to authorize the autopsy after claiming they would run medical tests on Lax that could produce beneficial health information for his children, end quote. So you can read the rest of it, but I just wanted to say right there, that tells you right there in that sentence where that doctor wanted to perform, he requested an autopsy so he could validate the potential for further samples from Lax's various organs. You know what I'm saying? Right there. So, everybody, who talk about cloning, these days, this all you need is a cell, a organ. It doesn't matter if you have an organ. Like they had a lot to work with. They pretty much, from using this word various organs, they was taken from all different parts of her body. You know what I'm saying? Without her or her family's knowledge. So, yeah, you can check out this article. Let's go to the next one. The legacy of Henrietta Lacks. It talks about, this is from the hospital that she was at, when she passed. And, it gets into what we just read. It's pretty much a recap. But, what stood out to me about this is the fact that it says, quote, at the time of, her life and her passing, Mrs. Lacks, it says the Johns Hopkins Hospital was one of only a few hospitals to treat poor African Americans, end quote. So, you've talked to your grandparents, you know what I'm saying? If they still, fortunate to be here with you, they'll tell you about a lot of the problems and issues that a lot of our people had dealing with these hospitals and these people in these medical centers, etc. You know what I mean? And she was exploited in this particular case. It just it happened to come to light. You know what I mean? What they was doing to her and her body, and you know what I'm saying? Even up until this day, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna read out of this article, but they're trying to honor her now and give her, post-mortem, as far as her physical body, honor for what her cells that she was blessed to have, done for other beings on the planet. Now this is, leading up to what ended up happening here a couple months ago, with her family and the state, receiving an award for a monetary reward for, what these doctors and researchers did on her body and stuff, and her cells basically was cloning. You know what I mean? Making medicines, and as they call them, medicines, and who knows what else, you know what I'm saying, from her her former body's cells and organs. Henrietta Lacks, science must right a historical wrong. In Henrietta Lacks' centennial year, researchers must do more to ensure that human cells cannot be taken without consent. My whole thing with this video here is, why was it okay? I mean, yeah, she signed that specific, and it was specific about, her consent for the anesthesia and for surgery, etc. It wasn't anything further than that. Her husband allowed for the autopsy, nothing further than that, because he thought they lied to him and told him it could help her kids, you know what I'm saying? But, what was the thinking process where, you could take a human being who passed form and just use their body, you know what I'm saying, without consent, you know what I'm saying, or compensation once you did it and tried to, just get the case dismissed, statute of limitations, all of this, you know what I mean? Like, what was the thought process that made it even okay to think that you can just take, you know what I mean, someone's DNA, you know what I mean, to keep it respectful, and just do whatever you wanted to do with it? What was the thought process, or the thought behind that it would be even okay to just do it because you don't have to ask for nobody's permission? You know what I'm saying? Where did that come from, and why her? You know what I mean? And why anybody that look like us, melanin rich beings? Why? I know the answer. I'm talking about the thought process behind these actions. That's where I'm getting at, because a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of melanated people don't even, ask questions. You know what I'm saying? They take and run with whatever the dominant, or not dominant, the popular opinion is on things, and don't think about it until the after effects come up. you can check out this article too. I'm not going to read it all, but I just want to highlight this particular sentence. It says, quote, but the story of Henrietta Lacks also illustrates the racial inequalities that are embedded in the U.S. research and healthcare systems. Lacks was a black woman. The hospital where her cells were collected was one of only a few that provided medical care to black people. None of the biotechnologies or other companies that profited from her cells passed any money back to her family. And for decades after her death, doctors and scientists repeatedly failed to ask her family for consent as they revealed Lack's name publicly, gave her medical records to the media, and even published her cell's genome online. End quote. So how is that possible? What gives any being the right to just, do what they did? The thought process I'm talking about. Who do you think you are? You know what I'm saying? And then you use us as objects. I'm saying us because she was an extension of our people. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't one of them, meaning pale skin, melanin recessives. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I'm speaking in science terms. So, what's the thought process? Let's go to the last one. So here it is, I guess it was time to be, addressed, and fortunately it was some melanin-rich people in Congress from Maryland who, were going to work on the behalf of her and her family. And it says Maryland congressman filed bill honoring Henrietta Lacks, whose immortal HeLa cells have led to medical breakthroughs. And again, you can look this up for yourself and read it or listen to it, because I think this is the audio for it. You know what I mean? This is just July 26, 2023. You know what I mean? And where we going to go to next is, dealing more with this thought process behind taking someone's genetics, DNA cells, and exploiting it for monetary gain, and why it was okayed for so long. You know what I'm saying? She was born, she passed away in 1951. That was even before the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You know what I mean? Okay, let's look at this question. Mrs. Lacks was born in 1920 and passed in 1951. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. Was the state of Maryland still operating under the black codes, which many other states still were at the time prior to 1964? Was there a law that gave the hospital the authority or right to take her cells without her consent and use them for research, and also allowed them to profit from them? Let's look into that a little bit. Just My 2 Cent podcast was also brought to you and sponsored by TasteJPSalsa.com. JP Salsa. You can come to their website, TasteJPSalsa.com, and check out the black beans and corn, blueberries, peaches, honey with habanero, honey apple, and roasted garlic. Either one you can't lose, because I'm not sharing mine. TasteJPSalsa.com. If it's not JP's, you can keep it. This is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Service website. We're looking at civil rights and how they look at it from a health and human services aspect or perspective. And we're here because of the fact that Mrs. Lacks, may she rest in peace, was dealing with a health issue. So what are civil rights? Civil rights are personal rights guaranteed and protected by the U.S. Constitution, and it's capitalized, and federal laws. That's interesting. Federal laws is not capitalized, but anyway, enacted by Congress, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Civil rights include protection from unlawful discrimination. The HHS Office for Civil Rights, OCR, enforces civil rights laws that prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, age, religion, and sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity, by certain healthcare and human services entities, state and local social and health services agencies, hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, insurers who are participating in marketplaces and receiving premium tax credits, and other entities receiving federal financial assistance from HHS. Under these laws, all persons in the United States have a right to receive health care and human services in a non-discriminatory manner. For example, you cannot be denied services or benefits simply because of your race, color, national origin, or disability. For more information about these laws and our authority under them, see our civil rights homepage. So that's how civil rights is defined according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So let's look at the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. It says this act, signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson on July 2nd, 1964, prohibited discrimination in public places, provided for the integration of schools and other public facilities, and made public employment discrimination illegal. It was the most sweeping civil rights legislation since Reconstruction, and Reconstruction took place after slavery had ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, which Emancipation Proclamation are they talking about? And which Emancipation Proclamation are you familiar with? You know, this particular act right here was signed the same year, you know, that Malcolm X, so-called Malcolm X, better known as El Haj Malik El Shabazz, was murdered. So, you know, a lot of the people that, you know, are melanated that we were taught in school and stuff about during so-called Black History Month, etc., they played a role in getting this piece of legislation passed. Now, 1964 was 99 years after slavery was ended, with the publicly known Emancipation Proclamation written by Abraham Lincoln. So, you know, things were still going on with how people were being mistreated and abused racially. You know what I'm saying? That was the point of, well, as they say, that was the point of the Civil Rights Act, Reconstruction as well. But black codes were still in effect. And if you don't know about the black codes, you need to look that up, because maybe your state was still operating under them, even up to 1964, and maybe a little bit after. So the South, everybody know that the slavery took place in the South, as they say, and you know, the South, I wanted to define that, you know what I mean, because maybe at that particular time of Mrs. Lack's life, you know, maybe Maryland was still looked upon as the South. A lot of people didn't know that. I had another couple websites originally that actually displayed Maryland being in a part of the South, but you know, when I pulled them back up here to do this presentation, they don't exist anymore. You know what I'm saying? They said the pages don't exist anymore. So I just wanted to read this. The South region, southeastern United States, generally, though not exclusively, considered to be south of the Mason and Dixon line, the Ohio River, and the 36 by 30 parallel, as defined by the U.S. federal government. It includes Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. The South was historically set apart from other sections of the country by a complex of factors. A long growing season, its staple crop pattern, the plantation system, and black agricultural labor, whether slave or free. White domination of blacks characterized Southern politics and economics from the 17th century and began to yield only after World War II. You know what I'm saying? But you see right here, Maryland was listed as a part of the South. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people to this day, they'll think, oh, it's the East Coast or, a little northeast. But Maryland was actually considered a part of the South. So we know from, what we was taught in school anyway about slavery, et cetera, slavery was going on over in that state as well. You know what I'm saying? Maryland. And black codes were still in effect up until, I'm gonna just say 1964 for the sake of this conversation. It was probably later than that because, other states that I know of, Ohio being one of them, you know what I'm saying, still had black codes going on prior to 1964. So the article goes on where it talks about the source proved, this climate, let me start right there. The warm climate of the South affords a period of 200 to 290 frost-free days per year, enabling such profitable crops as tobacco, rice, sugarcane, and cotton to be grown. This climate, coupled with abundant rainfall, offered 17th and 18th century. So 17th is the 1800s, and 18th century is 1900. It hasn't been that long ago. European settlers, it offered European settlers a superb opportunity to raise crops for export if an adequate permanent labor supply could be found. The source proved to be enslaved Africans made available for purchase through the international slave trade. From this unique situation of supply and demand arose the system of plantation slavery, which above all other factors distinguished the South from other regions, U.S. regions. By 1790, black people constituted about 1/3, there go that number again, or fraction, of the Southern population and almost the entire workforce on the plantations. At the beginning of the American Civil War, more than 4 million black people remained in bondage, though less than 1/6 of the white population actually owned slaves. What are they really saying right there? Because, you can read a book called The Forgotten Cause of the Civil War and learn some interesting perspectives. But we'll say that for another video. But the whole purpose of me showing you this part, this particular site, and you can check it out on your own. This is Britannica. Just look up, the South. It should highlight the fact that Maryland was in the South, and when the Civil Rights Act was passed and things like that, it didn't happen until 13 years after Miss Lax passed away, but they were still using her cells and forms, just like they would use, quote unquote, black labor, slave labor, to pick the corn, the cotton and rice and everything else. You see what I'm saying? Tobacco, sugarcane. So, it's just an interesting perspective on the law aspect of who gave these people authority to do what they did to her, and her family had to suffer for it. So I went here to the archives of Maryland. You know what I'm saying? You can look it up for yourself. It's a government website. Everything I'm showing you is, as you can see, is like official. You know what I'm saying? As far as how the U.S. government look at things. Anyway, the last paragraph is what I want to deal with. And you can find that same paragraph on on those articles that I was reading earlier. I just didn't read them all, but it says, since Gay, that doctor we were talking about, did not patent his HeLa cells, labs all over the world soon began obtaining these unique cells, meaning Mrs. Lax cells, for research and experiments. HeLa cells even went to space when the United States wanted to test how human cells would react in zero gravity, and were used to determine the effects of the atomic bomb. Scientists use HeLa cells to study molecular biology virology and genetics. I mean, the virology thing is, to me, is, you know what I'm saying, studying for biological and chemical warfare. But anyway, lax cells were also used for research on cancer, AIDS, and more recently, human papillomavirus, HPV, and in vitro fertilization. Vaccines and drugs for diseases such as herpes, leukemia, influenza, hemophilia, and Parkinson's disease were also developed through testing done on HeLa cells. So look at everything that this woman's cells, DNA, if you will, help these people to understand or work with whatever biomatter they were dealing with and trying to understand, if not propagate. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and it was considered, or I'm asking, was she considered still, a slave? Because they were, the slaves were considered property of their masters. Maryland was in the South. The Civil Rights, act that a lot of these older generations, really, go on and on about, you know what I'm saying? And no disrespect to them, it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? That didn't happen to 1964. 99 years after slavery was officially ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. You know what I'm saying? The one that everybody talks about. And like I said, do some research on the Emancipation Proclamation with 20 sections. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and hopefully this is showing you a little bit of how to look at how, a certain group of people, namely, I'm just going to say for today's conversation, so-called black people, because we not black, you know what I mean? But how we were been treated and why, like what gives these people the audacity to treat us as objects, you know what I mean? Or commodities, almost like we were still in slavery. And this woman didn't experience, direct slavery like that. But here it is, her body is, and her cells being used, cloned, basically cloned. If we want to talk about cloning and people acting like today, it's a big trend. Oh, this person was cloned, that person was cloned. Well, you actually have seen right here through this presentation of an elder, may she rest in peace, whose organs, etc., cells were used for other things that people probably ingested, used, you know what I mean? And no disrespect, I'm not going to go no further with those words, because, out of respect for the family, but you know what I mean? I'm glad that they were able to get compensated, for at least, what they were able to address and put out there, because I'm sure there are many other melanin rich people, and who have been exploited as well. It just, their stories haven't reached the light yet, you know what I mean, for everybody to see.